Hello artists, this is Kenna from Kenna's Creative Canvas. Today we're going to be painting a grateful pumpkin. Now just before I get started, your pumpkin can say anything you want. At the end I'll give you some tips and tricks to add words. We could turn this into a welcome sign, you could put your last name, you could just do a letter, or if you prefer you can just leave the pumpkin blank. It is up to you. It's your painting. You know pumpkins come in all shapes and sizes and all colors. I'll talk a lot about the paints today and the different colors. Just to show you, you could do this one in orange, green, turquoise, the off-white. You could paint this purple if you wanted to paint a purple pumpkin. So I want each painting to be unique and special, just like we are. So we're going to jump right in and get started. I'm going to put this one up here as we go through the paints. Just before, while I'm thinking about it, I have some optional paints also. You can see there's some shimmer and some shine. I'll talk about those also. We can add those at the end as well. That's a copper and a gold paint. Now also I have provided you with a tracer if you need it. Trust me, you don't. I'll take you step by step, but there is the shape of the pumpkin, the shape of the leaves, and the word thankful if you wanted to use that one. Again, you can put whatever word you want on there. You will need a paper plate or a disposable plate, something to put your paint on, a paper towel, a variety of brushes. I like to use a small, medium, and large brush, and a cup of water so we can rinse our brushes in between. Sit down here and jump in. Now, if you feel like you need to pre-sketch, you can do that. Like I said, I have the tracer for you. You can take a pencil and draw the shape on there. What I like to do is just use paint and jump right in. So pumpkins, again, they can be any shape or size. We're going to start with just kind of an offset circle and then add a couple of rings around the edges so it will look like it's got the ridges in the pumpkin. And to do that, I'm going to start with just a flat brush. So this is just a medium size flat brush. I'm going to dip that brush down into the water. And we could do this in white, but we wouldn't be able to see it because we're working on a white canvas. Today I'm just using a 12 by 12. I like a square canvas for just a pumpkin if that's the main focus, but you could use a 9 by 12 or any size really, a rectangle or square, whatever you have available. So we're going to start with that off-white because, like I said, if we painted the shape on with the white, we wouldn't be able to see it. Today I'm using unbleached titanium as my off-white. This is just a student grade paint. You could use a craft paint if you prefer any off-white color. This is khaki and light mocha. These are found at Walmart in the craft section. So again, I'll talk about the paints as we go. And again, you don't even have to use the colors that I'm going through. So if you prefer an orange pumpkin, start with an orange base to get that shape in there. So I wet the brush and I'm going to go into that off-white. Just kind of stir around just a little bit to loosen the paint up. If you're using the craft paint, you won't need to add much water because it's already thinned out for you. Scoot over just a little so I can kind of center up here. And again, we'll start with that. I'm going to keep this a little bit low. I'm going to leave some room so we can add some leaves toward the end. And I'm just going to paint kind of a loose circle shape. Doesn't matter if it's actually a circle or more an oval, because we'll reshape this more than once before we're finished. This is just to kind of hold our space, and I'm going to kind of fill that in, and then I'm going to add those sections onto the side just to kind of get the shape in there. So it's almost like we're adding ears onto the side. So I'm going to take the brush and just turn, and I'll do the same thing over on the other side and just turn. You could do this as many times as you want. Even in the tracer, there's a smaller one in the middle and then 2 on each side, but Again, it's up to you. I'm going to keep this kind of simple so that toward the end of the painting, we'll be able to add more details. We'll have more time. So I'll keep the pumpkin shape nice and simple. And I'm just going to fill that in. Again, you could start with just a big circle, but I like to kind of know where the ridges are going to be. So that's why I do it in sections. Filling that in. And really that's just there as a space saver. It's just to hold the place. If I get in there in a minute as I'm doing this background, I'm going to be okay with that. We'll be adding white right over top of that anyway. All right, we're going to go shift to our background brush now. That's just a big giant brush. You can use the same brush if you want. It'll just take you just a little bit longer. And I haven't used this brush yet, so I'll dip it down into the water. And guess what? I'm going to go into the same color. But what I'm also going to do is go into this dark brown color. So for this one, I'm using a burnt umber. And this is in an Artist's Loft color. It's burnt umber. You could use, this is melted chocolate in the craft paint. I had a couple others here. So any dark brown color, we want this background to have a little bit of texture. So I'm just going to go right into the corner of that paint, and I'm just going to start kind of filling in the background. Now again, this will be a different color when we're finished. And I'm going to be as random as I can with my brush strokes. For the original, I just painted up and down in a vertical brush stroke. And I wanted to add just a little bit more interest. So that's why I'm painting in this random kind of brush stroke. Add a little bit more water. If you're using the tube paint, you'll have to keep that kind of thinned out. And the big brush and random brush strokes. It'll kind of give you the idea that it's a fall day. Maybe there's some leaves blowing around back here. I just like the interest better, I think, that those random brush strokes adds. I'm a little more careful as I go around the pumpkin. As you can see, it takes just a little bit more precision as I go around the pumpkin, shift from right hand to left to, it doesn't have to be exact. And then a little bit more random with the brush strokes as I come on out. Doesn't matter if I get down in there, we paint this a couple of different times. If I really wanted to add a little more interest, you can add a slightly different color. I have a sort of a reddish brown here also. This one is red ochre. You could use any of the brownish red colors. This Tuscan red is very, very close. I do like this for the leaves. So I'll add just a hint of that in there also. I like the edges to be a little bit darker. Kind of keeps the focus on your pumpkin. Just a little bit of that there and a little bit of that there. And I might even add just a little black to kind of gray that out. So loose and random on the background. And if you like the smooth, just the straight lines on the background, all you do is you just paint in a vertical up and down brush stroke. And all I used on that one was the off-white and a little bit of that brown, a tiny bit. I like the brush strokes to kind of show, but not the stop and start. So by that I mean if I start here, there's a line right there. So I'm just light and loose and just kind of push the colors together. And then I'll very, very lightly go over those. Just smooth out the stop and start marks. Okay. I'm going to shift back to that original brush now, and we'll clean the edges up. This is already dry. We'll put the lines in so that we can start to see the ridges better on that pumpkin. I may, let's see, I'm going to change the tone just slightly. So I'm going to go back into that original color. Actually, back into the original color with a little bit of those darker colors in there. A little bit of that brown, a little bit of that reddish brown. And let's draw that back in so we can see it better. We needed that base color on there so our white will show up in a few minutes. This is almost the same color as the background, and that's okay. That's how we get our painting to kind of blend together, sort of look harmonious with the background and everything else. And it's looking kind of messy right now, but we're getting ready to fix that. I'm going to add some just plain white paint now. I'm going to take the same dirty brush and go right into the white. Tilt this up so you guys can see it just a little bit better. The center is going to be the brightest part of the pumpkin. So I'm going to go around that ridge there that we just created. We drew that circle. This is what's going to make our pumpkin stand out. That pure white paint, but it's mixing with the colors that we already had on the brush. So it's important when you're painting a pumpkin that your brush strokes go all the way from the top to the bottom. They curve slightly to the left and slightly to the right as you work your way away from the center. The very center line goes all the way, almost straight up and down, all the way from the top to the bottom. It's important that that circle, it doesn't get smaller and smaller as you go. It's all the way from the top to the bottom. And then the brush strokes curve slightly to the left and slightly to the right. That will help create that idea that we've got the ridges on the pumpkin. And that's already brighter. It's already starting to stand out. I filled in the center part first. We still may highlight it one more time. Now I'm going to do the edges, and I'm going to start on the outside edge and work my way back to this middle line, which is the shadow part, the darkest part. So along the outside edge with that pure white paint and just whatever's left over on the brush. It goes all the way down and connects. You're going to have a little loop down here at the bottom. There's one in the center, and there'll be one on each side. And then I work my way back toward the center where we had that darkest spot. All the time my brush strokes curving this time, and they always go all the way from the top to the bottom. Just smooth that paint out right across the ridge. Your paint is still wet and it's going to blend out. Again, don't worry, it's going to look like a couple of different pieces. We can paint over this a couple of different times and it will blend out. Same thing on the other side. So we're going to come over to this outer edge on this side and go right along the outside edge. I'm twisting the brush as I go. Curve the brush. I love painting pumpkins this time of year. And every time I paint one, it is different from the last, even if I'm painting the same design. Like I said, I like to change these up. I kind of wanted to see how many more details we could add to this one in our timeline. So we'll kind of see today. I hope we have time to add those metallic paints at the end. I'm not worried a lot about the bottom. We're going to put a little branch down there. If you're painting a freestanding pumpkin, though, you want to make sure that it's rounded in the middle. And then that each side rounds and meets that. That's the way the top is. So you've got rounded up here, and then each side comes in and meets up here where the stem comes out. So there is the base for our pumpkin. Background is almost dry too. I'm looking for a smaller flat brush. You can use a flat. It's cut straight across on the end, or an angle brush. I do like to use an angle brush when I'm painting branches. It's just easier for me to keep a thin line, but most people have the flat, so that's what I'll use for you guys today. I'm going to dip that brush down into the water, and I'm going to go into that dark brown paint, the same dark brown paint that we used in this background. Mix in there. I'm going to pick up just the tiniest bit of black as well. I'm going to do that so that it covers just a little bit better, and that it stays nice and dark. We'll highlight it, brighten it up, but this way it's a little bit less transparent. We're also going to pick up a little bit of that pumpkin color because that's still wet. So we'll do the stem and this branch that goes across in the same color. So I'll come up here and just add the stem in. Now the stem is a little bit wider at the base, and then it gets smaller as it goes up. Your stem can go all the way up to the top. It can curl around. It can come up and go over to the left or to the right. Whatever you want, just come up into almost a point. I like to start right at the edges. I'm going to keep it behind this front center because it sits down in there. And I'm just using the side of the brush and going up almost like I'm going to make a triangle. And then I'm going to veer off just a little bit. And you can see it's still picking up a little bit of that color. Like I said, brown is a little bit transparent. Sometimes it doesn't cover as well. Yellow and orange don't cover as well usually either. All we're doing here in the beginning is almost mapping in the painting. So we're doing this undercoat. It's the first thing we did on the pumpkin, the undercoating, so that we could paint it in later. So I'm going to let this stem kind of come over and get shorter. And again, depending on what color your pumpkin is, you could do green if you wanted to change this up with other colors. I think an orange pumpkin, for me, I generally paint those stems green. We'll put a couple of vines on there later also, but for now, that's going to hold our place. I'm going to use the same color. So wide at the base, narrow, and then it kind of goes over and it still gets smaller. Let's add our branch down here at the bottom. It's going to go right across the bottom. It's just something to hold our leaves for later. And I'll probably do the branch, and then maybe a branch is going to come off. So let's go all the way across. Doesn't have to be perfectly straight. Doesn't have to not be straight. It's your branch, however you want to paint it. Branches get wider as they go toward the tree, and in my painting the tree would be over here on the right side. So I'm going to let it get smaller over here, and every time I come over to the right side of the painting, the branch gets bigger, so it's not overlapping as much over here. You can see it's picking up some of that white color. This second coat will help it cover better. Again, I'm using that brown and black. I'm gonna have this come over, and I'm just gonna veer upward so there's a branch that kind of goes up and curls around the base up along the side. And maybe we can put a branch. I don't think I did that here, but let's have a branch just kind of come off. Again, smaller as it gets away, so the branch would be bigger at the base where it goes toward the tree. And that's also true for branches that branch off of each branch. So it's bigger at the base and smaller as it comes out and away. So this part would be the smallest, and it would get bigger as it comes down. What I usually see is people coming straight in and then stopping when you're adding branches. So what I recommend is that you come toward the branch and then you curve and go all the way down the branch. That will help it naturally get bigger each time you add a new section. So start at the end, run into the original branch, and go all the way to the end. Same thing here. Start at the end, curve, and go all the way down the branch. I do that with trees so they look like the branches are connected, and like I said, not just straight in and then stopping. All right, there's our branch. Now we're going to jump up here and add a couple of leaves. That's going to give this a little bit of time to dry, and your leaves can be any shape that you want them to be. So the easiest shape is, it's almost like an eye shape. So if you take the stem off, then it's like an eye or a football shape. Those are the easiest. You can get as detailed or as complicated as you want to get with your leaves. I keep them kind of simple in this style of painting because it goes in a little bit faster for us. Now your leaves can be any color you want. This is where I added some of the copper and the gold to make those kind of shine. So I'm going to lay those paints over here nice and close, and we'll use those if we need to. I'm going to add a little bit of orange now to my plate, and I may add just a little yellow because I may want those to be brighter. That one's not open. I'm going to use just a regular craft paint for my yellow. I think I can open it faster. So just a little yellow paint too. I'm just using a plain yellow. I also like this for fall paintings. It's a golden sunset. It's just a little bit deeper yellow color. So feel free to use that one if you prefer. I may put a little bit of that in there. And I rinse that brush out. It's got that brown paint in there. Now you could make some brown leaves if you wanted to. And I love this color, this reddish brown, so I'm going to go into that first. We'll see what this looks like. Might pick up just a little bit more brown to darken it. I like to start with a darker base and then highlight it with the gold and the copper, or highlight it with orange and yellow. So let's start with the basic shape. We'll start with one of the very, very basic leaves. I'm going to have them in both of the top corners. So this one over here, let's just do something very basic. Let's drop this one down. I'm just going to do half of the leaf. So the other half would be off the canvas, and we'll fill that in. That's just a basic And we'll pretend they're all coming out of this corner up here. I'll fill that in. I like that color. We might highlight it later or add some more details. That's a very basic, and imagine it would curve out on this side if it was the whole leaf. I'm going to show you one of the other shapes, and I'm going to turn this around so I can still paint down here at the bottom. Let's do one of these, and now you can crop this out of the pre-sketch that I sent you. You can blow it up and have these any size you want. You can cut it out and just trace it onto your canvas if you want to get that detailed. Like I said, you don't really need to. I'm going to show you just an easy way to kind of get this shape in. So imagine this as a light bulb shape. So imagine there's no, the ridges aren't there, but think about it as bigger at the end and then it gets smaller toward the stem. So a hot air balloon, or like I said, a light bulb kind of shape, and then we'll put those ridges on there. But if you get the basic shape in and you keep it small, you can go back and add the ridges in. So that's what we're going to do right here, and I'm going to try to make it a different color, a slightly different color. I may do, let's go in with a little bit of brown. I'm still keeping the colors kind of dark because I'll add these highlights in a second. So I'm going to go into that brown color and start kind of small so that I can add the ridges later. So imagine bigger on the end, and then it gets smaller as it goes toward the stem. So it's connected up here. And we'll kind of fill that in. Again, trace if you want. There is nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with using stencils when you get to the words. That's what I did up there. I have several stencils. Again, I think I may just do welcome, but I'll show you an easy way to kind of add words. So this one's shaped a little different than that one. Kind of looks like that hot air balloon shape, or that that light bulb shape. Now I'm going to add the ridges, and all we're going to do is kind of reshape this by coming on the outside of this. So if I wanted a ridge here, just kind of go along the outside edge. We'll leave a dent there, and it might come out over here. Maybe there's a ridge right there. They're pointing toward the pumpkin, sort of out and down toward the pumpkin, because remember I've got this upside down. There, it might come down this way and there'd be a ridge right here. There's ridges over here that we can't see. Goes right off the side. Over here, comes in. Let's have another one go out right there. Maybe there's another one right there. So the easy way is to put the shape in first and then go around and just give it sort of ridges and pull back and toward where the stem is. So now that's kind of a big sort of lumpy leaf up there in the corner, and that's how we get that kind of shape. The other one's kind of a triangle shape. I'm going to go a little bit faster and just put two of the smoother ones over here on this side just for time purposes. So let's get those in. I'll rinse that brush out. Not completely clean. I'm going to use a little bit of orange paint. Do a little bit brighter over here on this side. And let's let this one this one went down and this one's kind of coming over, so we'll have this one this way. Again, sort of a football shape. Put a little bit of that reddish brown in there. I think we'll make this one copper. Right now, again, we're just drawing with paint. If you do that with a pencil beforehand, that's okay. But we kind of sketch in with the paint. It saves some time. And acrylic paint is very forgiving. So if you feel like you've painted something then you're not really happy with it, you just wait until it dries and you can paint right over it. It's what I like about painting. There are no mistakes really. Just let it dry and paint back over it. I'm gonna pick up some of that orange or yellow color now. I did add a little bit of that sunset. I think that's just my preference. And I'll put one kind of coming down over here. You could do more leaves or less. I feel like the more leaves we add, the more interest there is in this one. I like how that side's kind of starting to brighten up a little bit. Okay. My pumpkin's almost dry and I want to brighten it up just a tiny bit more. You don't have to. If you like the color that yours ended up, just leave it. Don't do this part. I'm just going to take a small medium or smaller to medium sized brush and just add a few little highlights on here. I'm going to go right into the white paint. And I just want to brighten the top part up and let it kind of be darker at the base. If you're still working on your leaves, you keep working on the leaves. If you don't feel like you need to do this part, don't do it. Again, I just want this middle section to be nice and bright. And streaks on pumpkins are okay. I like the interest of the streaks and the color variation. Round that out. Now see, wasn't happy with how that wasn't rounded out, so I just reshaped it. A little more. I'm going to do both sides again. Top. A little bit of water until my paint's a little dry. And I'm just coming down the canvas until I run out of paint. So as it gets lighter down here at the bottom, I come back up and I pick up a little bit more and pull back in that same direction. I'm going with the curve of the pumpkin, just curling around. I'll let the paint kind of disappear as I work my way into the center part. Same thing on this side. Highlight white paint at the top, curve with the pumpkin. Down the canvas as it runs out, you just come back up and pull the paint back down. Staying in that circular shape, that curved brush stroke. All the way down to where my branch is. You don't need to touch the branch. There's shadow down here, so it would naturally be darker down toward the bottom of the canvas, and toward the bottom of the pumpkin. And now I see, I like the way the color is coming, it's standing out against this background that we painted in. See, I went a little darker with this background than I did that one. It's your preference on that one, whichever way you like it. Shift back to that small flat brush again. And I'm going to add, remember this was the brown and the black, I'm going to add just a little bit of just plain brown paint. to the stem. Kind of highlight that a little bit. I think we may use a little bit of copper on that also. You could add white and brighten it up even more. I'd like to do twisted stems. I've got a how-to on how to paint twisted stems. It takes a little bit longer to do those. Just putting a little bit more color in. I'll do a little bit of that down here on this stem, on the branch too. Just a little brown to kind of brighten up the branch. It's a little dark, but we needed it to be kind of dark to cover. I'm adding in just a little bit of that reddish brown color too. A lot of the colors are interchangeable. It's a fall painting, so they're all warm colors. But again, you could do this with teal. I like to paint teal pumpkins. Or green. Like green pumpkins with some white in them. A green base. And let's add some leaves down here. We can do a couple more of the other shaped leaves. I like to put a couple over here that kind of cover just a little bit of that pumpkin. And a couple kind of pointing down. I'm going to take this same dirty brush that I just used to do the highlights. And we'll go right back into that reddish brown color. And let's just decide where we want leaves to be. I like a couple over here, a couple over here. So we're almost like we're making a frame. I'm going to make this one kind of twist and curve. So I start at the top at the point and I curve around. You might not see all of that leaf. Maybe it's turned slightly sideways. It comes right down there. You could round it on out if you want. Kind of attaches right there. I love that color. I may do one more. Let's do one more right here. And here at the bottom. Make sure it goes all the way into the stem, into the branch. I'm going to make this one rounder here. It goes right off of the canvas. I'm pointing down. Put a couple over here. Let's change it up just a little. I did a yellow and an orange. I used... Let's use another orange over here. We've got that up here. Brighten it up down here at the bottom just a little. I'm going to use a little orange and yellow together. I'm going to do the back leaf first. So let's put a back leaf right here. Just picking up some of that brown. It's okay. The leaf that we put in front is actually going to go in front of that also, so they have to overlap a little bit if they all come from the same place. So there's some orange and yellow. You see it got a little bit darker. And I'm going to do a brown leaf right here, that same dark brown. Now I'm skipping around with my colors. You knew you wanted to do 2 or 3 dark brown, paint those in first, and you can do as many as you want, as many leaves. Now, like I said, this one's going to overlap. So let's let this one kind of curl up. Kind of serves 2 purposes. It goes over that branch that was the same color. And I don't want you to worry about coverage because I think we'll make this one copper. And it's picking up a little bit of that white paint. We just need the shape in. Again, all we're doing is putting the basic shapes in first. I want to add a couple of little vines that twist and curl. Now my painters, when I'm painting in person, kind of get a little nervous when we add these little vines. And for this one, I just came up and looped and went off, came up, looped this way, and then twisted back. Once you start on your vines, the idea is to hold your brush so that you're pulling and you're leading with the handle of the brush. It'll keep your paint nice and smooth. We're going to thin our paint out just a little bit. And then once you start, you go all the way to the end. Don't come up here and stop and then have to reattach. It leaves little dots and where it connects. You could do as many loops as you want. Let that just loop everywhere. It can go down behind the pumpkin, in front of the pumpkin, whatever you want it to do. No need to get nervous. Like I said, my in-person painters generally do. It's best just to take a deep breath and just paint. So I'm taking a little bit of water. I'm going to make this nice and dark. Taking some of that dark brown, a little bit of black, and I've added a couple of drops of water, and I'm just kind of pulling the paintbrush around to thin that paint out a little. And I like to twist the brush and pull towards me, which will give me a nice sharp tip and help load that brush up. So twist and pull the brush, drag it through the paint. If you're coming straight down to load your brush up so it's going right into the paint, it'll make a big tip on there and it'll fuzz it out. So we're using a little detail brush, and the idea is to keep that nice and sharp and pointed, so you twist and pull the brush through that paint. This up so you guys can see. So I'm going to start at the base, wherever it might start in the stem, and then I'll twist. You come up, twist around, and just kind of let it go where it may. Now that was probably kind of quick, but once you start, you need to, like I said, keep going until you find an end point. You slowly pull your brush up, and it trails off and gets smaller at the end. I can go back over that if I need to and make it darker. But the idea is to get the shape in there. I'm just turning this around so I can get a better angle as I go. They don't all need to have a twist in them. This one will come out and maybe twist this way and then go off. I'm going to let this trail off as it goes smaller. I lost a little bit right there, so I'm just going to reconnect that. You can add more of these if you like, or don't add them at all if you don't want to. The trick here is having a pretty good detail brush. Having your paint kind of thin, and then like I said, once you start, just go all the way to wherever you want it to stop, or it goes behind your pumpkin, because you don't want to have to stop and then try to reconnect and start back again. All right, we are finished with the basic layout of our painting. And now all I'm going to do is go back and highlight. And I really like the way the color came out on this one. I'm going to go back and highlight these leaves, put some of that metallic paint on there. Like I said, I like to use both a gold, and it has a nice shimmer to it. This is old gold and copper. Let me find one you can see. There's copper. I'm going to put both of these colors out. I really like both of these for fall. They're optional. You don't have to do this. If you don't want to do this, you will add regular paint just to kind of get some of the lines out. And I'll show you that with regular paint, and then I'm going to show you the two metallic colors. Just like to add a little shimmer. Add some highlights. So again, there's the gold. See how it shines, and the copper. And let me show you really quick what you do if you don't have those two colors. It is okay. So let me show you on this one first. We needed that base color, the base coat. And I'm just going to use plain yellow paint. Might even put a little bit of orange in there. And I just come down at the tip. You can use your fingers if you want to kind of blend it in so that the end is a little bit brighter. Maybe the edge is a little bit brighter. You can add some orange, kind of mix those up. Don't even have to use your finger, but I like to do that for blending. You just want a kind of a variety of color on your leaves. It's up to you what colors you like. You can smooth it out, or you can kind of add it in little circles. Tap the color on there so that the leaves look like there was light spots and dark spots on there, but look how much brighter that gets with that second coat. That's what this second coat, that's what the little details are about. Add a little bit of that. I just went into that let's pick up some of that reddish brown color, that red ochre, and I'll do the same thing here. The second coat on your leaves is what makes all the difference. You can add the veins of the leaves in there if you wanted to add more detail. You could take a leaf from outside and put paint on the back of it, any color you want, and just really lay the paint down and then press that leaf onto your painting. Those come out beautiful too, especially if you have a leaf that has the raised veins up on it so that you can get all that intricate little lines from the middle. I've done that in a couple of paintings, and they come out kind of splotchy in places, but the color and just the detail is amazing on those. Add just a little bit of orange and a little bit of that same reddish brown color. Again, the second coat is all about the highlights and brightening up the painting. We might even add just a little bit. You know, I like to highlight brown sometimes with orange because of the way it looks against that dark brown paint. So if you wanted to use orange to highlight your branch, you could certainly do that. I like how that comes out. I know I'm moving this around on you guys a lot. It's hard to get the whole canvas in frame. So I'm trying to make sure the side that I'm working on is in the picture at least. This is a little bit larger canvas than I usually do online. So I just highlighted that one with a little bit of that orange and yellow. So now let me show you what the copper does. Let me show you how that looks. Go right into that copper. And let's do this, paint this one here. No, let's do this one. I don't want to do this one. It's so dark. We can, but I covered this one. It's behind that one. It now has a shine, and it will dry nice and shiny. And as you walk by this painting, that leaf is going to catch your eye. I'm going to highlight one side of this one because I like that dark edge on this one. All the way down to where it connects. And a little bit on this one. And see how that color covers I knew it would cover this one up, and I'm going to highlight it with some other colors. Now my leaf came up into my pumpkin. When you put your words on, I like for the leaf to be in front. So if thankful or grateful or welcome goes across your pumpkin and your leaf came up, you can let it kind of tuck in behind the leaf. I like how that looks. You can do yours either way. It can go right in front of everything if you want. Sometimes I paint pumpkins all in this copper color and then I highlight them with the gold. So I also wanted to show you what that looks like too. That's why I brought the gold, put the gold out. So I'm not even going to rinse the brush. I just wiped it off on the paper towel. I'm going to go into that gold. Gold is usually a little bit more transparent. You just streak over. It highlights the copper really well. I love how these paintings look in the light. I might put a little bit of gold right up here on this one. It wasn't metallic. I'm just going to add a little bit of that. We could add, let's do a little bit of copper. We can add some copper here to the stem. I'm painting with the side of the brush now, not the wide, but on the narrow. You could do this with a detail brush. Pulling in some streaks of copper. Take that little detail brush and just add a little bit. I'm not going to trace the whole thing, just a few places to make that little vine stand out too. You could add some leaves on your vines. Look at that shine. Add as much of this as you want. This because we painted the stem in the same color, the vines, and then we did this branch. I'm going to put just a little bit on there too, since I have it on this little detail brush. I just streak across that. It will start to look like bark on the tree. And I know I'm skipping around, kind of jumping around everywhere. I know I paint faster than my painters. The beauty of doing a virtual event, though, is that you can pause, rewind, start over if you need to. And I know, like I said, I know I've skipped around, but I wanted to get as many details in as I could, because you can stop, you can go back, and you can just keep adding. Let this dry and do another coat. Add more leaves, add more vines, add the word again of your choice. Highlight all the leaves or highlight the pumpkin. You can also do a pearl paint on the pumpkin if you wanted the pumpkin to shimmer. So there's a pearl that would give that a shine. And I'm going to give you a couple of really quick tips about adding our word. I think I'll do a welcome on there if I can find. So lots of ways that you can do that. If you use the tracer, you can expand this to whatever size you want. You could you can put chalk on the back, and then let's color that really well with chalk or pencil lead, whatever you have, and then you lay that down where you want it. You take a pencil and trace, so you just go across the lines, and it would leave the print of those letters on there for you. Then you just take a small brush and you paint those in. Now you could do the stencil, like I said. You can get smaller or larger stencils. I have a couple. I did grateful, I have welcome, I have thankful, I have blessed. Whatever you want to put on there, I'm sure you can find it in a craft store or at one of the department stores in the craft department also. So I may just stencil welcome on there. Of course, you just put that down. You can use a stiff brush, which would be like a stencil brush. Use the least amount of paint that you can. You dip into the paint and then you tap to get the color through the stencil. Or you can use a sponge brush to put the paint through there as well. The idea though is to use the least amount of paint that you can when you're doing stencils so that it doesn't bleed out through the edges and get paint all over everything. Now if I was going to freehand this, I do have a piece of chalk here. So this is the easiest way for me to freehand. If I wanted to write something on here and I wouldn't want to go straight into the black paint with a paintbrush and then just start painting. Even though I've been doing this for a long time, I like to make sure my letters are spaced out. Chalk to me is the easiest way. So if I wanted to do welcome, and let's just really quickly, so a W, E, I'm not going to be able to see it with this white, L, C, O, M, E. I can see that. Not sure if it's coming through for you, but I can see that. And then if I didn't like something, if it didn't come through, I can just dust it back off and write it back on there again. And then you take your paintbrush. Let's see if I can find this small flat. And what you want to do is thin your paint out. You want it to be nice and thin when you're doing letters, especially if you have chalk on there, because the chalk will of course absorb some of the paint, kind of dry it out. I'm just going to thin that out just a little bit. And my letters are spaced. The W is just inside, the E is just inside. And then I would just paint. I'm going to let that go down behind there, that leaf. I don't have to follow exactly where those lines are because that will dust off after this is dry. So it's tucked in down behind there. You can use a fine tipped brush if you're not comfortable using a flat. I'm using a flat and painting on with the narrow part of the brush. But if you prefer, use that small detail brush. Thin that out just a little bit more. Letters used to terrify me. I'm still not great at it, especially freehanding, going kind of fast, but I'm pretty happy usually when I go over it first with the chalk, and I kind of know where the letters are going to go. Another tip is to use the wide part of the brush if you're using a flat when you're pulling downward, and the narrow part when you go up. You want that part to be thinner. So the wide part as you pull down the canvas, the downward brush strokes, narrow as you go up. And there is welcome. Don't forget to sign this. Use the small brush. If you paint this one with us, please take a picture and send it in. Oh, I didn't highlight that one. Let me do that really quick. So I'm going to take a couple of different colors. I didn't highlight, that would just hit me. Let's do some orange and yellow right on top of that. If I start here at the tips and I just pull forward and kind of highlight the center part of this one. You do these however you want. I'm always pulling toward where the middle of the leaf would be. I didn't want to not highlight this one after I did all the rest. I saved it for last and just about forgot about it. Again, if you kind of be loose with your brush strokes like we did when we first started and random, I think you'll like this one a lot better than trying to be precise and exact with all the leaves and the highlights. There is the finished painting. Again, don't forget to sign it. Take a picture if you paint this one. I hope to see you guys in person real soon. Thank you.